Did I ever think I'd be steering a $1 billion construction empire while my marriage crumbled under the weight of betrayal? My name's Rachel, 37, living in the pulsing heart of Atlanta, Georgia, where skyscrapers gleam and ambition hums through the humid air. I share a sleek, company-owned condo with my husband Lucas in a high-rise overlooking the city's skyline, a view that feels like a promise and a taunt all at once. We both work for Brooks Construction, a juggernaut founded by my father-in-law that builds everything from towering office blocks to sprawling suburbs across the South. I never pictured myself here, my heels clicking on polished floors as I crunch numbers and make deals. Life, though, has a knack for rewriting your plans. Growing up in a cramped apartment in Macon, I watched my single mom juggle waitressing by day and cleaning offices by night, her hands rough but her eyes fierce with determination. She taught me to be sharp, to decide fast, and to never back down. That grit carried me through college and into banking, where I thrived on the chess game of budgets and investments, each number a piece in a story I learned to read. Meeting Lucas, with his easy charm and trust fund ease, felt like a chance to soften that edge, maybe build a family, a quieter life. But that dream flickered out fast, and now, as I stand in our condo, staring at the city lights, I sense the cracks in our marriage deepening, hinting at a storm I didn't see coming. My mom's voice still echoes in my head, telling me I was born with a calculator in one hand and a plan in the other. Back then, I used that instinct to navigate spreadsheets and risks in banking, loving the thrill of spotting patterns others missed. Lucas, though, is my opposite. Gentle, charming, but fragile, like a glass figurine raised in privilege. His father built Brooks Construction from a small outfit into a powerhouse, buying out rivals with a mind as tough as steel. Lucas was groomed to take over, but he's never had the fire for it. One night, sprawled on our couch, the TV flickering with some reality show, he admitted it. "I'm not cut out to be CEO, Rachel," he said, his voice soft, almost relieved. "I'd just be a figurehead." I stared at him, my heart sinking, wondering how someone could drift so willingly through life. I'm wired differently. Decisions come easy, my gut guiding me like a compass. When we married, I planned to leave banking, focus on us, maybe kids, but my father-in-law had other ideas. Not long after our wedding, he called me to his office, a wood-paneled room thick with blueprints and awards. "Rachel," he said, his eyes sharp despite his age, "this company needs someone like you, head for numbers, spine to match. Join us." I hesitated, picturing that quiet life I'd imagined, but his challenge hooked me. I said yes, and that choice changed everything. At first, I was just another employee, learning the ropes, timelines, contracts, labor costs. The construction world was new, all concrete dust and hard hats, but I tackled it like I did banking, methodically, fearlessly. My father-in-law saw something in me, started pulling me into board meetings, asking my take on budgets or deals. The board, mostly gray-haired men used to running the show, raised eyebrows at the founder's daughter-in-law at the table. I felt their skepticism, like I was an outsider crashing their club. But I didn't shrink. Years in banking had taught me to spot gaps, to analyze risks others overlooked. So I spoke up, suggesting ways to streamline costs or negotiate better supplier contracts. Slowly, their frowns turned to nods. They started seeking my input, even deferring to me on big calls. Lucas, though, was barely there. He held a board seat by title, but he'd skip meetings, claiming they were too technical, or he had other stuff to do. The board didn't care. His dad's legacy gave him a free pass. One night, I came home from a grueling meeting, my head buzzing with strategies, and found him lounging, flipping channels. "Why didn't you show up today?" I snapped, dropping my bag. "You're supposed to be part of this." He didn't look up. "You've got it covered, Rachel. They listen to you, not me." His casual tone stung, and I stood there, frustration simmering, sensing the distance between us growing like a fault line ready to split. That moment lingered, a quiet warning of what was coming. Work became my anchor, the one place I felt steady. I threw myself into it, driven to prove I belonged, not just as the founder's daughter-in-law, but as someone who could steer this ship. My father-in-law became my mentor, teaching me how to read a room, when to push, when to pull back. I loved the rush of making things happen, seeing my ideas turn into growth, new projects launched, profits climbing. But with every step I took, Lucas drifted further, his indifference a shadow over our marriage. I'd lie awake at night, the city's hum filtering through our condo's windows, wondering how we'd gotten here. My mom's lessons about grit kept me grounded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break. The skyline outside glittered, all promise and pressure, and I knew I'd need every ounce of that grit to face whatever came next. As the months rolled on, I found myself diving deeper into the rhythms of Brooks' construction, the early mornings blending into late nights filled with the scent of fresh coffee and the glow of laptop screens. My role expanded naturally, like a building taking shape from blueprint to structure. By the time my father-in-law started phasing toward retirement, I was running point on major decisions, acquisitions, labor disputes, even marketing campaigns that positioned us as the go-to firm in the South. I'd walk into those boardrooms with a stack of notes, my old banking instincts kicking in. Numbers don't lie, and I knew how to make them sing. Our sales climbed, profits grew, and I felt a fire in my chest, like I was finally doing what I was meant to. Growing up watching my mom scrape by, her determination etched into every weary smile, had prepared me for this. Now I was leading a company that employed thousands, people with families counting on us for stability. That responsibility weighed on me, kept me up sketching strategies on napkins or pacing our condo with ideas bubbling over. The high-rise views became my thinking space. The city lights a canvas for envisioning new projects, from eco-friendly suburbs to innovative urban towers that could redefine Atlanta's horizon. Lucas, though, remained a shadow in all this. He'd show up at the office some mornings, pressed shirt and easy smile, but by lunch he was gone, off to golf or whatever hobby caught his fleeting interest. I'd find him at home, controller in hand, lost in video games or napping as if the empire his dad built was just a distant echo. I tried talking to him, especially after his father stepped down, my voice edged with urgency. "Lucas, this is your legacy. Don't you want to be part of it?" He'd shrug, that maddening shrug, and mutter, "You're doing fine without me." It stung, not just the opting out of the company, but how it mirrored his disengagement from us. Our conversations shrank to surface level. Weather, what's for dinner, nothing that touched the heart of things. I'd lie awake, the hum of the city below our windows, feeling the gap between us widen like a chasm in cracked concrete. Work was my refuge, where I could channel that frustration into something productive, like negotiating a deal that saved us millions, or launching a training program for our crews to boost safety and morale. The board leaned on me more each day, their trust a hard-won badge. One particularly tense meeting stands out. We were debating a risky expansion into Florida, hurricanes and regulations looming like storm clouds. The gray-haired veterans argued back and forth, voices rising over spreadsheets. I stepped in, laying out a phased approach with contingency budgets drawn from my banking days, factoring in insurance hikes and supply chain buffers. They listened, really listened, and by the end, we voted yes, with my plan as the blueprint. Moments like that fueled me, a rush better than any caffeine hit. But coming home to Lucas's apathy drained it away. He'd ask about my day in that casual way, but his eyes glazed over when I shared details. "Sounds complicated," he'd say, changing the channel. I started wondering if he even saw me anymore, or if I was just the efficient machine keeping his world afloat. My mom's words about never backing down echoed louder, pushing me to excel at work while the personal side frayed. Amid the climb, I carved out small victories that felt personal, like implementing a scholarship program for employees' kids, inspired by my own scrappy path through college, or pushing for sustainable materials in our builds, turning my gut feel for trends into company policy that won us green awards and new clients. The office buzzed with energy under my lead, teams motivated, deadlines met with a sense of pride. Yet, Lucas's absence cast a pall. The board whispered about it sometimes, but his name shielded him. I covered for him more than I should, handling his advisory duties on top of mine, all while our marriage felt like a hollow shell. One weekend, we tried a date night. Dinner at a trendy spot downtown, the air thick with jazz and candlelight. I hoped it might bridge the divide, but he spent half the time on his phone, and when I brought up work, he sighed. "Can't we just relax?" The frustration boiled over in the car ride home, words sharp like shattered glass. Relax? while I'm holding everything together?" He went quiet, and that silence followed us into the condo, heavy as unfinished rebar. The tension built subtly, like pressure in a fault line. I poured more into the company, mentoring junior staff, streamlining operations with tech upgrades that cut costs without cutting corners. My father-in-law, even in semi-retirement, called weekly, his gruff praise a balm. "You're the spine this place needed." But at home, the disconnect grew. Lucas's indifference wasn't just lazy. It felt like abandonment, leaving me to carry the load alone. I'd stare at the skyline from our balcony, the buildings I'd helped erect standing tall, and wonder if our relationship could withstand the strain. Little did I know, a bigger quake was coming, one that would test every bit of my resolve and reveal just how deep the fractures ran. The fractures were there, subtle at first, like hairline cracks in a foundation that could hold for years or give way in an instant. My father-in-law's mentorship became the reinforcement I needed, his wisdom a blueprint for navigating the complexities of the business. He'd invite me to his office for strategy sessions, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and fresh ink from rolled-out plans. "Rachel, always trust the numbers, but read the people too," he'd say, his voice gravelly from decades of sight shouts and boardroom battles. I absorbed it all, applying his lessons to everything from union negotiations to bidding wars on prime land. Under his guidance, I led an overhaul of our supply chain, partnering with local vendors to cut delays and boost community ties. Ideas that not only saved money, but earned us goodwill in Atlanta's tight-knit circles. The thrill of it was addictive, each success a brick in the wall of my confidence, while at home, the walls between Lucas and me grew taller. His indifference wasn't confined to work. It seeped into our daily life like damp rot. Mornings started with me brewing coffee alone, reviewing emails as the sun rose over the skyline, while Lucas slept in, emerging only for a quick peck before heading out to vague errands. Evenings were worse, me unwinding with a glass of wine, recounting a tough deal closed, and him nodding absently, eyes on his phone. "That's great, Rach," he'd mumble, but the words felt empty, like placeholders for real connection. I missed the early days when his charm had drawn me in, promising a partnership. Now it felt one-sided, me pulling the weight while he coasted. My mom's grit had taught me to push through, but this wasn't a job hurdle. It was my marriage eroding. I'd try sparking conversations about us, weekend getaways, maybe starting that family I'd once dreamed of, but he'd deflect with shrugs or change the subject to some trivial news. The condo, with its modern lines and panoramic views, started feeling like a gilded cage. Beautiful, but isolating. Work, though, was where I soared. With my father-in-law's backing, I spearheaded a digital transformation, implementing software that tracked projects in real time, reducing errors and speeding completions. The board applauded, one member even joking I was the secret weapon they'd been missing. I mentored a few rising stars too, young engineers fresh from Georgia Tech, sharing tips on balancing ambition with ethics. It reminded me of my mom's sacrifices, how she'd pushed me to excel despite our struggles. Her influence drove me to advocate for better benefits, like extended parental leave, ensuring our employees didn't face the same hardships. Profits reflected it, up 15% in a year, with new contracts flooding in from state infrastructure bids. But success came with longer hours, and Lucas's resentment simmered subtly. "You're always at the office," he'd complain on rare nights we shared dinner, the table set with takeout because neither had time to cook. I'd counter that someone had to steer the ship, but the arguments fizzled into silence, leaving me staring at the ceiling, the city's distant traffic a lullaby of unrest. The drift accelerated with small, telling moments, like the company gala, where I networked in a sleek dress, sealing a partnership over champagne, while Lucas lingered at the bar, chatting idly. Colleagues praised my vision, but he seemed distant, almost embarrassed by my spotlight. Later, in the car, he admitted, "I feel like I'm just along for the ride." It hurt, but it also clarified things. Our paths had diverged, mine climbing while his meandered. My father-in-law noticed too, pulling me aside during a family brunch at their estate, the sprawling lawns a contrast to our urban perch. "Lucas isn't stepping up, but you are," he said, his tone approving yet tinged with regret. He shared stories of his own early struggles, building the company from nothing, and encouraged me to keep pushing. Those talks grounded me, a paternal bond I'd never had growing up. Yet, they highlighted Lucas's absence, making the marital void starker. As tensions mounted, I channeled energy into innovation, like piloting drone surveys for sites, cutting inspection times, and impressing clients with tech-savvy pitches. The office hummed with purpose, my team loyal and driven, a family of sorts replacing the one fading at home. Lucas's apathy turned to avoidance. He'd vanish for hours, claiming personal time, leaving me to handle bills and decisions solo. I'd confide in my mom during calls, her voice steady over the line from Macon. "You've got the strength, honey. Don't let anyone dim it." Her words fueled me, but the loneliness gnawed. One stormy evening, rain lashing the condo windows, I confronted him again, voice trembling with pent-up emotion. "This isn't working, Lucas. You're checked out." He looked away, mumbling apologies without change. That night, the thunder outside mirrored the storm inside, foreshadowing the chaos about to erupt with Camila's arrival. Then, my stepsister Camila blew into our lives like a hurricane sweeping through the Georgia pines, all charisma and hidden agendas. She's 3 years older, with that effortless charm that turns heads and sharp edges that cut when you're not looking. We grew up under the same roof after my mom married her stepdad, a gruff guy who didn't stick around long, leaving us to navigate a blended family full of tensions. Camila learned early to charm her way through life, always chasing something flashier. Designer clothes, rich boyfriends, a lifestyle that screamed success on the surface. Her marriage to a hotshot lawyer had ended in flames when she cheated, a messy scandal that spilled over into family gatherings. I was buried in work, juggling a major suburb development project that had me reviewing blueprints until midnight. So when her ex stormed into our parents' house yelling about betrayal, Lucas stepped in to calm things down. He's good at that, diffusing tension with his quiet, steady vibe, like a soft rain quenching a fire. Camila called me afterward, gushing over the phone, her voice bubbly with exaggeration. "Your husband's amazing, Rachel. He handled that guy like it was nothing." I brushed it off, too focused on cost projections and permit approvals to dwell on it. But that moment shifted something for her. Camila saw Lucas in a new light after that, not just as my laid-back husband, but as the heir to Brooks Construction, a golden ticket wrapped in privilege. She didn't know the truth, that his executive title was mostly courtesy, a nod to his dad's legacy, and he had little real involvement. To her, he represented wealth and ease, the kind she'd always pursued. Her ex's high salary hadn't been enough to keep her loyal, but it was why she'd married him in the first place. Now, freshly divorced and tangled in alimony payments that drained her accounts, she was on the hunt again, her eyes sharp like a hawk spotting prey. I didn't notice at first, too caught up in board meetings where I pitched expansions into sustainable housing, drawing on market trends I'd analyzed late into the night. Camila started dropping by more often, first under the guise of family visits, her laughter echoing through our parents' home during dinners I'd skip for work calls. She'd text Lucas about catching up, her messages laced with flirty emojis that he dismissed as harmless. But I felt a subtle shift, like the air pressure dropping before a storm, the way she'd linger near him, touching his arm lightly while sharing stories of her adventurous life. Her presence stirred old memories from our shared childhood, times when she'd charm her way out of chores or into favors, leaving me to pick up the slack with my no-nonsense approach. Mom had always warned me about people like that, flashy on the outside, hollow within, but I'd focused on building my own path. Now, as Camila wove herself into our circle, I threw myself deeper into the company, leading a team on a high-profile skyscraper bid that required schmoozing city officials over lunches. The adrenaline of sealing that deal, watching contracts sign amid the clink of glasses, was my escape. But glimpses of trouble emerged, Lucas mentioning Camila's tough time with a sympathy I found odd, or her showing up at a company event uninvited, dressed to impress, her eyes flicking toward him more than once. I confronted him lightly one evening in our condo, the skyline twinkling like distant stars. "What's with all the texts from Camila?" He shrugged it off, just being supportive, but his avoidance gnawed at me, echoing the indifference that already strained us. As weeks passed, Camila's intentions clarified in small ways. She'd call me for sisterly advice, But the conversations veered to Lucas, how lucky I was, how he seemed so capable. I laughed it off internally, knowing his capability was limited to charming small talk, not the gritty decisions I made daily. Work demanded my focus, resolving a labor dispute that threatened delays, negotiating with unions over fair wages while keeping budgets intact. My father-in-law praised my handling. "You've got the touch, Rachel, like I did back in the day." Those affirmations bolstered me amid the growing unease at home. Lucas began spending more time out, claiming errands. But I'd catch whiffs of her perfume on his shirt, subtle hints I pushed aside in denial. One rainy afternoon, after a site visit where mud caked my boots and satisfaction filled my chest from progress inspections, I returned to find them laughing over coffee in our kitchen. "Family catch-up," Camila said with a wink, but the air felt charged, like static before lightning. The undercurrents built, mirroring the company's growth under my lead. New hires, expanded fleets, but personally it felt precarious. My mom's voice in my head urged caution. Watch the ones who smile too wide. I doubled down on work, innovating with green tech integrations that won us awards, but the personal storm brewed. Little did I know, Camila's chase was accelerating, her sights set on what she thought was a fortune, blind to the reality that Lucas was more mirage than treasure. One evening, I came home exhausted, my head spinning from a day of negotiating a new contract for a massive downtown redevelopment, the kind that could reshape Atlanta's core with green spaces and affordable units. Lucas was waiting in the living room, his usual easy grin replaced by a somber expression that set my nerves on edge. "Rachel, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy, like the weight of unspoken secrets finally pressing down. Lucas never sounded serious, so I sat, bracing myself, the city lights flickering through the windows like distant warnings. "Camila is pregnant," he said, staring at the floor. "It's mine. I want a divorce." The words hit like a demolition charge, knocking the air out of me. Pregnant? Divorce? My mind reeled, piecing together the fragments. Camila's lingering visits, Lucas's evasive shrugs, the subtle shifts I'd ignored amid work's demands. Camila, my stepsister who'd always chased what wasn't hers, and Lucas, too spineless to resist, had crossed a line that shattered everything. I wanted to scream, demand details, but numbness took over. "When's she coming to talk about this?" I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. He mumbled something about her visiting on my next day off. I nodded, already mapping out how to face this head-on, just like a crisis at work. The days after Lucas's bombshell felt like wading through fog, the world muffled yet sharp with pain. I went through motions at the office, leading meetings on project timelines, signing off on budgets, but my thoughts circled back to the betrayal. It wasn't just the affair that stung, it was the absurdity. Camila, thinking Lucas was some powerhouse CEO sitting on billions, had set her trap. And Lucas, indifferent to our marriage as he was to the company, had walked right in. I felt foolish for not seeing it, for letting boardroom battles blind me to the war at home. But survival mode kicked in, honed from years of quick decisions. I knew I had to protect my place at Brooks Construction. If divorcing Lucas made me just an ex-daughter-in-law, the board might sideline me. The next morning, I drove to my in-laws' sprawling estate outside Atlanta, the winding roads mirroring my jangled nerves. My father-in-law was in his study, surrounded by old photos of groundbreaking ceremonies and faded blueprints. I told him everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the divorce demand. My mother-in-law, hovering nearby, gasped, her eyes brightening at the grandchild mention, but one sharp look from him silenced her. He leaned back, face unreadable, then smiled faintly. "Rachel, you're the heart of this company," he said. "I don't care what Lucas does. You keep running things, I'll handle him." Relief flooded me, mixed with sadness. His priority was the legacy over his son, but it secured my purpose. With that anchor, I navigated the wait for Camila's visit, channeling energy into work like never before. I pushed through a vendor audit that uncovered inefficiencies, saving us thousands, and brainstormed a community outreach program to build goodwill in underserved neighborhoods. My mom's resilience inspired me. She'd faced worse alone, always emerging stronger. Calls with her helped, her voice a steady line from Macon. "You've built this life, don't let them tear it down." The condo felt haunted now, Lucas avoiding eye contact, sleeping on the couch. I'd stare at the skyline at night, the buildings I'd helped construct standing resilient, reminding me of my own strength. When my day off arrived, Camila showed up, all smug confidence, her designer bag swinging like a trophy as she breezed in. "Rachel," she said, voice dripping pity, "I'm so sorry you couldn't have kids. But don't worry, I'll make sure you get plenty of money to start over. Just leave this place." She gestured at the condo like she owned it already. Lucas sat silent, face blank. I wanted to laugh at the irony, her assuming a billionaire lifestyle awaited, but I kept cool, drawing on boardroom poise. "Divorce is fine," I said steadily. "But we'll need lawyers for alimony and property. And Camila, you really think Lucas is the prize you're after?" Her eyes narrowed, but she waved it off, bravado intact. "I know it's real, Rachel. Lucas has everything I need." I bit back a smirk. She thought he was the president, heir to fortune, oblivious that the condo was company property and his salary barely covered extras. The encounter left me resolute, mentally outlining next steps like a project plan. This wasn't just a broken marriage, it was a threat to what I'd built. I wouldn't let them dismantle it. As Camila left, her heels clicking triumphantly, I felt a spark of defiance ignite, ready for the negotiations ahead. The divorce negotiations were set for the next day, and I was ready, armed with the same strategic mindset that had won me tough contracts at Brooks Construction. I'd hired a sharp lawyer, Mia, who'd handled high-stakes corporate cases and knew how to keep things fair but firm, her reputation built on unraveling complex entanglements like this one. We met in a sleek conference room at the company headquarters, the Atlanta skyline glinting through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a reminder of the empire I'd helped expand. Camila strutted in, acting like she'd already won the jackpot, her heels clicking with overconfident rhythm, while Lucas slouched beside her, his indifferent mask firmly in place. I sat across from them, Mia at my side, my heart pounding beneath a calm exterior. I'd spent years outsmarting competitors in rooms like this. I could handle a personal showdown. Camila started strong, tossing her hair with dramatic flair. "Rachel, name your price for alimony. I'll make sure you're taken care of." Her tone was patronizing, like she was graciously tossing scraps my way. Mia raised an eyebrow, then slid a document across the polished table. "Since you're offering, we'll be claiming alimony from both Lucas and you, Camila," she said coolly, her voice cutting through the tension like a precise blueprint line. Camila's jaw dropped, her smug facade cracking for the first time. "Me? I'm already paying my ex," she sputtered, eyes darting to Lucas for support, but he just stared at his hands. I leaned back, watching her confidence fracture, recalling my mom's adage about shortcuts leading to stumbles. Camila was tumbling now. She hadn't anticipated this twist, hadn't thought through the web she'd woven. The discussion shifted to property division, and Camila, scrambling to regain footing, declared boldly, "This condo's Lucas's family's, right? It's not part of the split." Mia didn't miss a beat, producing another set of papers with efficient grace. "The condo and the land it's on belong to Brooks Construction. The company decides who stays." Lucas blinked in surprise, mumbling, "Wait, I thought it was Dad's." Camila's face paled, the color draining like wet paint in rain. "So we can't live here?" she asked, her voice sharpening with panic. Mia's reply was crisp and unyielding. "You can if the company allows it, but that's up to the acting CEO." She glanced at me, and I saw Camila's eyes widen as realization dawned, slow and devastating. "Hold on," Camila said, turning to Lucas with accusation brewing. "You're not the CEO?" I stepped in then, my voice calm but firm, laced with the authority I'd earned through countless board victories. "I'm the acting CEO, Camila. Lucas is an advisor, no executive power. My father-in-law made me president when he retired. The board trusts me to run things." Lucas looked away, embarrassed, while Camila's face twisted in disbelief and fury. "You're joking," she snapped, glaring at him. "You let me think you were the boss." He shrugged, that same infuriating shrug that had grated on me for years, and I almost laughed at the poetic justice unfolding. Camila had banked her scheme on Lucas being the heir apparent, a ticket to luxury, but she'd misread the entire structure, like bidding on a project without checking the specs. Mia, sensing the momentum, chuckled lightly before asking me directly, "Can Lucas and Camila stay in the condo?" Before I could respond, Camila jumped in desperately. "It's company property, so it's free for Lucas, right? Mia shook her head, sliding over a rental agreement with the precision of a well-drafted contract. It's leased to employees at market rate. Here's the figure. The number was steep, reflecting Atlanta's booming luxury market, and Lucas's eyes widened in shock. My salary can't cover that, he said almost to himself, the reality sinking in like foundations on unstable soil. Camila looked like she'd been slapped, her dreams of a lavish life crumbling faster than a poorly built wall. She'd waltzed in envisioning mansions and ease, but now faced rent she couldn't swing on her own. I felt a strange mix of pity and triumph. Pity for their delusion, triumph for standing firm. Throughout our marriage, I'd covered expenses, pouring my earnings into bills while Lucas coasted. Now, with no substantial savings to divide, the split was clean but revealing. Mia wrapped up the session by outlining next steps, including alimony calculations based on incomes, and I watched Camila deflate, her charisma evaporating under the harsh light of facts. As they left, whispers of argument trailing them, I exhaled deeply, the conference room's quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos. The negotiations marked a turning point, exposing not just their affair, but the illusions sustaining it. Back at the office, I dove into a new initiative, partnering with tech firms for smart building integrations, using the adrenaline to fuel progress. My position secure thanks to my father-in-law's unwavering support, I felt empowered, ready to close this chapter and build anew. The fallout was almost poetic, unfolding like a poorly constructed scaffold collapsing under its own weight. A few weeks after the negotiations, word trickled back to Lucas's family that Camila's pregnancy claim was nothing but a sham, a fabricated story spun to ensnare him and tap into what she believed was boundless wealth. She'd concocted it to escape her financial woes, alimony debts piling up like unpaid invoices, banking on the family's excitement over a grandchild to seal her place. My mother-in-law, who'd been so thrilled at the prospect, was devastated, her hopes shattered like fragile glass on a job site. She withdrew into quiet disappointment, barely speaking during family calls. My father-in-law, who'd never fully trusted Camila's flashy demeanor, was furious, his anger boiling over like an overheated engine. "She's no daughter-in-law of mine," he growled when I visited for advice on a new acquisition, his voice like steel rebar. The tension at their estate was thick, the once warm gatherings now strained with unspoken accusations. Camila and Lucas, who'd moved in there temporarily after realizing the condo wasn't theirs to keep, found themselves at odds with everyone. Whispers in hallways, cold shoulders at meals. Camila couldn't handle the scrutiny, her charm cracking under the pressure like cheap plaster. One morning, she packed a bag and vanished without a word, leaving Lucas to face the backlash alone. She'd stormed into this thinking she'd snagged a rich husband and a life of ease, but all she'd reaped was debt, drama, and disdain. I heard through the grapevine, my mother-in-law's hushed phone updates, that Camila had fled to a friend's place in Savannah, dodging calls and plotting her next scheme. Perhaps another unwitting target. Her departure left a void, but for me, it was closure, a loose end tied off neatly. Meanwhile at work, I channeled the chaos into productivity, overseeing the launch of that Florida expansion we debated months earlier. Sites buzzed with activity, crews laying foundations under my phased plan, and early reports showed we were ahead of schedule, costs under control. The success validated my approach, the board sending commendations that warmed me more than any personal win could. My mom's pride shone through in our talks. "You've turned poison into power," she'd say, her words a reminder of the resilience she'd instilled. Lucas, stripped of his illusions, tried to crawl back to me a week later. One evening, as I settled into my new apartment, a modest spot in midtown Atlanta with clean lines, quiet peace, and a balcony overlooking bustling streets, he showed up unannounced, eyes pleading under the hallway light. "Rachel, maybe we could try again," he said, his voice laced with desperation I'd never heard before. I laughed, not cruelly but from sheer exhaustion at the audacity. "Lucas, you made your choices," I told him firmly, standing in the doorway like a gatekeeper to my fresh start. "You cheated with my stepsister. You checked out of our marriage long before that. I'm done." He shifted uncomfortably, mumbling about regrets and how he'd been lost, but his words rang hollow, echoes of the indifference that had eroded us. His dad had already cut him from any meaningful role at the company, demoting him to a temp-like job pushing papers in a back office, a far cry from the heir he'd been born to be. The man who'd once coasted on legacy was now scraping by, paycheck to paycheck, and I felt nothing but relief, free from the weight of carrying him. The family dynamics shifted irreversibly after that. My father-in-law doubled down on his support for me, inviting me to strategy sessions at the estate where we'd pore over market analyses, his gruff nods approving my ideas for diversifying into commercial real estate. "You're doing what I always hoped Lucas would," he confided once over coffee, his eyes soft with a pride that filled a void I'd carried since childhood. My mother-in-law, though heartbroken, warmed to me again, sending care packages of home-baked treats to my apartment, a silent acknowledgement of where loyalties lay. Lucas faded into the background, his attempts at reconciliation petering out as reality set in. I'd spot him occasionally at company functions, looking diminished, but I kept interactions professional, focused on the bigger picture. Like negotiating a partnership with a tech firm for AI-driven project management, a move that positioned Brooks Construction as an industry innovator. Through it all, work remained my sanctuary, a place to rebuild from the rubble. I implemented wellness programs for employees, inspired by my own emotional journey, ensuring mental health support amid the stresses of construction life. Profits continued to climb, new hires brought fresh energy, and I found solace in the tangible impact. Families housed, communities developed. The betrayal had scarred me, but like a well-engineered structure, I'd reinforced myself, emerging stronger. Camila and Lucas became distant memories, lessons in trusting my instincts and forging ahead, unburdened. I threw myself into my work with a renewed vigor, the one place where I felt whole and in command, like a captain steering through calm waters after a tempest. Running Brooks Construction wasn't just a job anymore, it was my calling, a tapestry woven from the threads of my mom's unyielding grit and my own hard-fought battles. Every decision, from approving innovative projects that incorporated solar tech to ensuring our workers had stable jobs with fair pay, felt like a promise kept to the thousands who depended on us. I thought often about my mom, how she'd worked herself to the bone for me in that cramped Macon apartment, her sacrifices fueling my drive to make the company not just profitable, but a force for good. Our profits climbed steadily. New contracts rolled in from government bids and private developers alike, and the board started referring to me as the backbone of the business. Their trust, a solid foundation I'd built brick by brick. My father-in-law became my steadfast rock, offering advice over leisurely coffees at his estate, where the sprawling gardens bloomed with possibility. "You're doing what I always hoped Lucas would," he said once, his eyes softening with a pride that warmed me deeper than any familial bond I'd known. I don't think about remarriage much these days. The idea of opening my heart again after the meat grinder of betrayal feels like inviting another storm. My heart's been tested, reshaped, and now it's guarded, focused on the fulfillment that comes from leading with purpose. Instead, I'm married to my work, to the dedicated teams whose families rely on Brooks Construction for their livelihoods. Their trust keeps me grounded, pushes me to show up every day with a clear head and a steady hand, innovating ways to streamline operations or expand into eco-conscious developments that align with Atlanta's growing green initiatives. I've learned what I'm capable of, what it means to stand tall when life tries to knock you down, drawing on that inner calculator and planner my mom joked about. Camila and Lucas have faded into distant memories, mere lessons in trusting my gut and choosing paths that honor my strength. They taught me the value of discernment, of seeing beyond surface charm to the substance, or lack thereof, beneath. The journey hasn't been without its quiet moments of reflection. Evenings in my midtown apartment where the city's hum lulls me into introspection. I'd sip tea on the balcony, watching the skyline I'd helped shape, pondering how far I'd come from that banking desk to the helm of a billion-dollar empire. Work provided structure, but I also carved out time for personal growth, joining a women's leadership network, mentoring young professionals from backgrounds like mine, sharing stories of resilience over panel discussions. It felt empowering, paying forward the mentorship my father-in-law had given me. The company thrived under this holistic approach. We launched apprenticeship programs for underrepresented youth, partnering with local colleges to build a diverse pipeline of talent. Feedback from employees poured in, notes of gratitude for initiatives like flexible scheduling that eased family burdens, echoing the stability my mom had fought to provide me. Occasionally, echoes of the past surfaced, a random email from Lucas, now in a mundane sales role elsewhere, or news of Camila chasing schemes in another city, but they no longer stung. I'd archived those chapters, focusing on authoring new ones filled with achievement and autonomy. My father-in-law's health waned slightly with age, but our bond strengthened. He'd review quarterly reports with me, his insights sharp as ever, ensuring the legacy endured. The board formalized my role as permanent CEO, a unanimous vote that affirmed my place, not as an in-law, but as the visionary leader. Celebrations followed, a company-wide event where toasts rang out, the air alive with camaraderie and optimism for the future. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through the shadows of betrayal, the ache of heartbreak, and the glow of hard-won victories. If my story resonated, stirring that fire of injustice or the spark of fighting back, hit that subscribe button and join the ride. Every project we build, every deal we close, tells a tale of grit, heart, and starting over. Keep carving your own path, and I'll see you at the next milestone, where ambition meets opportunity in the heart of Atlanta. As the sun dips below the Atlanta skyline, casting a gentle glow over the city that has become my canvas, I find myself reflecting on the quiet strength that carried me through. The high-rise lights twinkle like stars, each one a reminder of the dreams built from the ground up, layer by layer, with patience and care. In these softer moments, away from the bustle of boardrooms and blueprints, I feel a deep sense of peace settling in, like a warm blanket on a cool evening. The betrayals that once stung so sharply now seem like distant echoes, faded whispers in the wind, teaching me the beauty of rising anew without bitterness. Work remains my anchor, a steady rhythm that honors the legacy of those who came before. My mother's tireless hands, my father-in-law's wise guidance, while nurturing the futures of so many others. Families thrive because of the stability we provide. Communities grow stronger with every structure we raise. And in that, I discover a fulfillment deeper than any personal tie could offer. No longer do I chase the illusion of a perfect partnership. Instead, I embrace the solitary joy of self-reliance, the gentle assurance that I am enough. As night falls softly, wrapping the world in its tranquil embrace, I step back inside, heart light, ready for whatever tomorrow brings, whispering to myself that all is well, and the path ahead is bright.